Okay, so welcome to the May Heartspace. It's lovely to be here. I'm always very happy to be practicing with other people, and particularly this month because I've been away for a month on a retreat, and I've got used to having a whole load of people around me, and it's quite weird to be in my practice room just on my own. So of course we're never actually on our own, and sometimes that connection is digital, whose magic I still don't really understand, but somehow I know that there's these pixels, and that means that you guys are there. And even if I can't see you, I know you're there. And even if you're listening to the recording, in a sense, that's exactly irrelevant. But there are lots of ways of being together. I think that's what I'm saying. So it's really lovely to be connecting with others. And in any case, I do always start my practice on my cushion, and then I visualize beings around me. Sometimes I do have beings around me, like my cat, but quite often I'm on my own. But I do have sometimes a visual, but most often a felt sense of people around me. So I just invite you today to, as you settle, maybe think about who you'd like to have around you today in your practice. Who is speaking to your heart at the moment that you're really kind of bringing with you into this space? So just take a moment to feel your way into that. And if no one's coming up, that's absolutely fine. If you just need some space, and we're going to be talking about space in the session, that is also fine. But we have so many connections across time and space. People who are no longer with us, people who are many, many miles away, or people who we see every day and hold very dear, or maybe even people who we see every day and we're having difficulty with, and it's sometimes quite beneficial to have them in the space with us, and that can shift something in the way that we work. So I'm just inviting you to take a moment as we settle and welcome yourself. You've made a decision to come here today. So now you're here. In whatever way you're showing up is absolutely fine, with whatever capacity you've got today for being here. Just welcome the whole of yourself, whether it's a busy-minded self, or a slightly low energy self, or a totally, yes, I need this, I'm going to sink into it like a warm bath self. Whatever self is here, just open up to that self and welcome yourself. And then maybe welcoming others around us. So just a minute or so to get a felt sense of us and us as a group, and others. And then we'll do some settling, some slightly deeper settling. So we've brought ourselves into the space, and of course we're here in body and mind, and it's really beneficial to acknowledge how these two are connected and work with those connections. So maybe we can start by taking our awareness to the very top of our head, starting at the top today, just becoming aware of that point right at the very top of our crown. And energetically, that point is kind of our highest point. It's the peak of our mountain, and it has an energetic connection right down our spine, right to our base chakras, right to physically to the sit bone, where we are connected to the earth. So we're kind of balanced between the sky and the earth, with a central nervous system and a spine. and an energetic flow. So if we focus on the crown of our head and just very, very gently and almost imperceptibly allow the crown to be pulled up ever so slightly. So we're just lengthening that spine, more energetically than physically, but if it feels okay to do it a little bit physically, you're welcome to do that. So elongating the spine and helping that flow of energy from the crown chakra right to the base chakras and the sit bone. And just having a feel of how that feels to be centered. And then working our way down our face, noticing how our face is showing up and how we're holding our face today. Noticing anything that we're holding on to that we perhaps don't need to hold on to just now, just out of habit. So not pushing any changes, but allowing ourselves to really just be here in a present and relaxed way. And that might mean the brow softens, might mean our eyelids droop a bit, muscles of the eyes or around the face, around the lips. Sometimes we can have a kind of, tight grimace on our face without realising it, and I certainly sometimes clench my jaw without realising it, and then my awareness goes there and I think, oh, actually I can let go of this. So just giving some attention so that our whole face is showing up in a way that's comfortable for us. And then moving down the neck. Same thing, any tension, any holding that doesn't need to be there. Maybe just breathing into it and letting it go. Bringing some ease to this body. And of course, the shoulders, the upper back, and the shoulders often hold attention. If it helps, we can move them a little bit just to help with that ease. And breathing into that area, allowing the shoulders just to sort of hang off this wonderful central column. And taking our awareness down our arms, saying hello to our elbow joints, down to our wrist joints, noticing if we're clenching or holding in the hands, in the fingers, just allowing them to be relaxed. Notice what's going on with them. Is there any tingling as we sit? Any sensation of heat or cold? Just kind of checking in with hands. And then moving the awareness back up the arms. High wrists, high elbows, back to the shoulders, and down through the trunk. So this includes our rib cage and all the muscles of the back, upper back, lower back, and all the organs safely tucked inside, working away to support us. Noticing the movement as the breath passes through the body. Noticing the rise and fall of the chest, perhaps some opening of the belly. And taking our awareness down to our pelvis. our pelvis actually can be quite crucial in us finding a position that gives us the best chance of just staying with our body. So just checking that we're not leaning too far forward or slumping too far back, but that we've got a comfortable kind of neutral pelvis, and that might mean adjusting it. So we can do some little wobbles backwards and forwards until we find that sweet spot where the pelvis feels just right. Into our hip joints, down to our knee joints, calves and ankles, and down to the feet, however your feet are, whether you're sitting on the floor or sitting on a chair. Just notice the contact the feet and the buttocks have with something solid. So just noticing that connection. So upper part of the body exposed to the air and the lower part of the body connected to earth. And then opening the awareness up to the whole body and getting a sense of being in a whole body. We often focus on one part, and sometimes we feel as if we exist just in our head, but our awareness is distributed throughout our whole body. It's constantly responding throughout the whole body. So turning our awareness to how that is and how we're showing up today. What's the background kind of mood or tone to us being here today in this body? It might not come in neat words. We might just have to sort of put out sensory tentacles and just feel. How am I? How am I showing up today? Jumping to either extreme of yes, I'm fine, or no, I'm terrible. Actually, there's probably lots of nuances in how we are. So opening up to how that is just now. And then recognizing that however we are is just fine. I think it's Kabir that said, your entry point is wherever you are. So this is who we are, where we are, how we are, and that's the entry point. And that's just fine. We don't need to pretend or desire to be other. But we're just going to do some work with the breath so that we can perhaps allow some of the reactivity and busyness which often dictates the pace of our life and the way that we show up, just by some deeper breaths to stimulate the vagal nerve and the parasympathetic nerve system, so that we're really allowing for a bit of soothing and a bit of spaciousness. So for the next 3 breaths, I'd like you to take really deep, conscious breaths, breathing in through the nose and then breathing out again, either through the nose or mouth, at least for as long as you breathed in, possibly longer. So nice deep breaths in, following the breath all the way in. See if we can get it deep into the body, and then allowing the breath to leave fully. At least one more deep breath. And then just allowing our breathing rhythm to return to normal, but still staying with the breath, still noticing. Noticing the breathing body and how the body is breathing itself. And then when we reach the next out breath, just turning the attention again to the contact with the ground or the chair, and just noticing how we can let go into that sense of being held on the out breath. I mean, I'm saying the sense of being held, but noticing what comes up for you. What do you experience when you breathe out? Which is different from breathing in. So part of the meditation today, we're going to be working with spaciousness, but being able to access spaciousness and letting go often depends on feeling supported. So I just want to spend a little time with tuning into how supported we feel just now, not for all time, but just now as we sit, how supported we feel in this body. So how am I experiencing being in a body that supports my sense of me? And how am I experiencing being in a body that is in turn supported by the air coming in, by gravity, And just feeling our way how far we can let that be without a sense that we need to be doing anything. Are we okay to allow our body to be supported and to support us? And something else I'd like to just bring in at this point, because I think it's really important for everything we do, but it's going to be important for the meditation we do later, is a sense of warmth. And that can be experienced as physical warmth, it can be experienced as colour, or it can be experienced as appreciation or gratitude. But at this stage, I'd like to invite you to open up to some sense of warmth in the practice. Okay, so if we are entering into these processes with a mind that is harsh and spiky and punishing and cold, we're probably not going to find the ease and the safety that we need. So for me, it feels really important early on to tune into my own sense of warmth. The sense that I'm on my own side. I'm not doing this to prove that I can't do it or how terrible I am. I'm really here for myself in a kind of curious and allowing way. But also, if I have access to it, a sense of a greater warmth that comes from connection. So again, connection to this earth, to this amazing state of being where we are nourished and provided for. We're nourished by the air we breathe. We're nourished by the earth. And we owe everything to this nourishment that comes from without, that comes from this interconnection. So when I tune into that, I automatically feel a sense of warmth. It might work differently for you, but it's just a suggestion. But I do know that there have been studies showing how a mind of gratitude and appreciation is really a key to a lot of opening to other things. So I think it's worth just exploring that for ourselves. And then the warmth that flows the other way as well. So at the beginning I invited you to bring others that you felt you wanted to kind of be present with you at this moment, or are in any case present with you, into the practice. And for me, the warmth flows both ways with those connections as well. The warmth of connection that provide meaning. So we've had quite a long settling today, and just to end it, we can set an intention and then explore a little bit of motivation. So I suppose our collective intention is to show up with integrity and authenticity and warmth in whatever way we can, in whatever capacity we have in this moment, but with sincerity. And to be here for as long as we have said we'll be here. For some of you that might only be for part of the time. There may be people who join later. That's all fine. But our intention is just to be open and present, just as we are. Or maybe you have another intention. Maybe your intention is to be curious and just explore what happens in these sessions, but not quite fully engage at this point, which is also fine. It's all a journey, and we're all travelling, interweaving, moving in a direction. But hopefully that direction is similar, and that depends then on the motivation. So we don't have to share this, but I'm going to invite you to answer the question for yourself. Why have I come today to this Heartspace session? Why am I here? There's no right answer. And it might not be clear. It might be a sense rather than a sentence. But whatever's come up, maybe we can ask again, is there a reason beneath the reason? Why have I put time aside to be here? And feeling our way into that, we can allow that to be the energy in the background. You know, I was a teacher in a high school for many years, and I know that if kids don't have the motivation, you know, you can pour as much stuff into them as you want, and it just doesn't have any energy. So there has to be some motivation. So if we tune into our motivation, then we are more likely to be enriched by the experience. And then letting the motivation just be there in the background, we can come back to noticing being in the body. Having engaged thinking mind a little bit, we may be having thoughts, so noticing that we are in a body and we have thoughts that pass through our mind and our awareness, and no need to stop them, just being aware and letting them pass like waves in the ocean. Noticing subtle thoughts and emotions that constantly change, like the sky, the clouds, the changing light. Never still. So being able to be with that as well. We don't need to be closing down anything and opening our awareness up to the whole of it, to the whole of just being here, alongside our experience as it unfolds. And then maybe if we've had our eyes closed, we can open our eyes and bring visual into the experience, maybe the screen or the room around us. Remembering the appreciation. And then maybe because we've been sitting for a little while, we can appreciate this body by moving it a little bit. So I just invite you to make a few movements after that meditation. Maybe a few stretches. Someone told me recently about, well, I'm sitting on the floor, but I don't know if this works as well on chairs, but like tilting the pelvis forward and letting the head drop, and then taking it back and letting the head drop backwards, and then allowing everything to kind of come back to a balanced point. So there's a sort of two extremes, and then finding the balance again. And that kind of worked for me during my retreat. So I've been on a retreat for the past month. My knees were going a bit crazy because I was sitting cross-legged for most of it, like 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day. I felt very privileged and very fortunate to be doing the retreat in a place called the Land of Joy in Northumberland, and very connected to the people who I was doing the retreat with. So I've been back a couple of days, and that's always a bit of an adjustment to make. And what's been coming up for me in these couple of days is this edge between spaciousness and focus. And it feels sometimes as if those two things are sort of opposites, the way that they show up in my life. Like I can just completely go with the flow. I can go to my allotment or go for a walk and it's totally spacious. Or then I've got an agenda and a list and stuff I need to do, and that's focus. But what I was noticing that happened during the retreat was that there was a demand on focus, but there was also a real need to keep spaciousness, because if you're practicing a lot and you don't keep spaciousness, there can be really terrible consequences for mind and body. You start to build up. The Tibetans call it lung, which is like a build-up of tension which affects the body and the mind. So a need for spaciousness at the same time as having focus. So this felt like a very interesting edge to explore, and I've been thinking about it quite a lot since I've come back, and the move is perhaps away from spaciousness and straight into backlog of emails, post, to list of things to do, my mum's appointments, and it's all just kind of coming. So it's like, where's my space gone? So how do I manage to keep spaciousness and still get through my to-do list? And I think, you guys as therapists and most people in the world in whatever capacity, life can sometimes feel just like a series of to-do lists, and spaciousness takes a hit. And I think in the past, one of the signs that I need spaciousness is a tendency into escapism. So, even using drugs or alcohol or watching films or just trying to get space because there's so little space. And so they've been sort of set up as that you either ors, like you either have space or so a real tension between them. But now what I'm finding is there is a way to find spaciousness within perhaps busyness. And there is a way to maintain focus within spaciousness. So this is something, so I'm not going to give you a magic bullet, so I'm just offering it as something to explore, because it's been interesting for me to explore. I think another way that I've started looking at it is that spaciousness comes from allowing. So when we were doing the settling, there's a certain spaciousness that's created by looking at what's there and allowing it to be there, rather than jumping in and manipulating and trying to change things. So there's a spaciousness that comes with allowing and opening and being sort of present with what is. But of course, we can't just be there, we have to do. And I think that the focusing that gets into busyness, I start to think more of as manifesting. So the space can then manifest, but there's this trick of allowing that I can tune into, so that I'm not feeling like I'm having to do all the time, because it manifests of itself. A bit like the breathing happening of itself, and us being alongside the breathing, without having to think, got to breathe in now, got to breathe out now, got to breathe in now. The breathing just happens, and I suppose that is sometimes encapsulated in flow, when people talk about flow, when things are manifesting without too much conscious effort, because we've tuned into the underlying rhythms which provide the spaciousness. So it's almost like being grounded in space, which seems opposite, seems totally opposite. It reminds me of the quote by Chogyam Trungpa, which I've used before, but some of you may not have heard it, where he says the bad news is you're jumped out of a plane, and the bad news is that you've got no parachute. So you're moving through space and you've got no parachute. But the good news is there's no ground. Now we might not be quite ready for that, but it's kind of pointing in a direction that I think it's worth playing with. Like, whoa, how ready am I for there to be no ground? Because we all need to feel grounded, and we need to feel safe. Can we be grounded without our usual, touchstones? How are we able to just be? How far are we able to be spacious? I suppose that's what I'm playing with. There's a quote by the artist Aronovich. Abramovich? I might have pronounced her name wrongly. Anyway, she's an amazing sort of performance artist, and I've got the quote on. I have an art room where I do stuff like that, and I've got a quote on the wall with a picture of a sort of time delay picture of water, so it's all sort of blurred, and the quote is, letting go of control is key. And I put that up a couple of years ago, and I don't know what sort of headspace I was in when I put it up, but I've been looking at it again recently, and I was thinking, okay, yeah, I get that. I get that if I'm too controlled when I'm being creative, it just doesn't happen. If I'm overthinking and trying to manipulate things, there's got to be some sort of flow. But then I started thinking, yes, but if we let go of control, well, who's in control? Or what's in control? And does that feel safe? So it's actually quite a complicated edge to play with. And so this is where my disclaimer that I should have put in at the beginning comes in, is to say that I'm not in the room with you. I don't know, the ins and outs of your life. And really, you have to take care of yourselves and feel these, what do we call it, windows of tolerance, or, these edges for yourself. But I think we all have a capacity to create more space, whether that is physical, mental or emotional. And that to me feels key to then allowing manifestation to happen in a way that doesn't feel tight or contrived. And that's the edge that since my retreat I've been playing with. So I'm just throwing that out for you to have a bit of a play with yourselves, and you know, I'd be very interested to hear how that lands with people. You know, and there are so many questions. You know, if we let go, what happens? You know, how do we access safety? Are we feeling safe enough to let go? What do we mean by let go? How far? How much space is enough space? You know, are we okay for there to be no ground and not have a parachute, or do we need a different image? Do we need the space of sea, of an ocean space, that there is some solidity but it's very fluid? Or do we need, you know, the space of just creating space in our body and our mind through something like a yoga session where we're not doing anything else and we're really just having that? So we can all find ways to play with showing up in the world and being aware of the space that is underneath everything, that unites everything, that we can't fully grasp with our sort of conceptual mind. And I think that's really part of the practice, always. And giving the gift of space to ourselves. I mean, I've just been, you know, really fortunate, dropped everything for a month. You know, amazing, very difficult for people to do that. Not that easy for me to do, but, you know, possible. But even if we can't do that, maybe an hour in the day, maybe we can give ourselves the space to explore space and spaciousness for an hour a day, in whatever form, whether it's with creating something, walking in nature, sitting on a meditation cushion. You know, an hour out of the 24 where there isn't space. I guess there's space when we're sleeping, but not if we're having bad dreams. But consciously engaging with the space, you know, an hour. Or maybe it's only 10 minutes. There's been times in my life when it's only been 10 minutes. But I would encourage this exploration of space. So there's a poem. There's a poem by Mark Nepo. And, oh, if I can find it, where have I put it? Maybe there isn't a poem by Mark Nepo. Oh yeah, there is. Which has a slightly different feel. It's not directly talking about space, but when I reread it recently, it resonated with me in the same way. So I'm going to just invite you to. Well, actually, I've been talking for quite a while. And what time are we on? 1:15. Oh my goodness! I was going to do another meditation. We're really not much time. I'll read the poem, and then I'll invite you to take more time today to do a meditation by yourselves, so that we've still got some time for interaction, if that's okay. And maybe we can do that meditation or another meditation next time. So, Mark Nepo, he's written a poem called Yes, We Can Talk. Having loved enough and lost enough, I'm no longer searching, just opening. No longer trying to make sense of pain, but trying to be a soft and sturdy home in which real things can land. These are the irritations that rub into a pearl. So we can talk a while, but then we must listen, the way rocks listen to the sea. And we can churn at all that goes wrong, but then we must lay all distractions down and water every living seed. And yes, on nights like tonight, I too feel alone, but seldom do I face it squarely enough to see that it's a door into the endless breath that has no breather, into the surf that human shells call God. So I wanted to just share that, and I'll share it on the chat afterwards, on the email afterwards. And yeah, thinking about just opening and listening the way that rocks listen to the sea. And then seeing that it's a door. So that really spoke to me in the sense that words and experiences, forms, thoughts, all of these manifestations of our life seem to be doors. And we can live our life just being engaged by them, but there is space underneath them where it's all connected. And so any of these words and thoughts and experiences can become portals. And for me, that is how the spaciousness remains, when I remember that it's always there and I don't have to create it. And I use, or can use, feel able to use words, thoughts, feelings, experiences as doors. So we can do a short closing meditation, and then if people would like to share, that's great. If you need to go, that's also fine. So for our closing meditation, just coming back into this physical body that's here breathing and that we are experiencing and grateful for. And then just for a moment, see if we can turn this into a body of light. So just allowing the sense of physicality to become a sense of light and energy. And just allowing that light and energy to do what it wants to do, which is to beam outwards. It can't be contained. And so those beings that we invited at the beginning, and the whole community of people that are online or access this online later, and then allowing our heart-mind to expand as far as it's able, encompassing where we are and where we're not, the whole of the earth, beyond the earth, all beings, all of life, to the extent of space and beyond our imaginations. So allowing our light to connect with everything and drawing back in the energy from that connection, which makes us who we are. And just soaking that up for a few breaths. May all beings be happy, may all beings be free from suffering. Thank you. So I'm going to turn the recording off now, I think. Stop recording.